Okay, I have to tell you guys. Okay, so last night I was reading The Girls Got a Book for Christmas about the women in the Bible. Mackenzie got it for them. How cool. And we were on the story of Abraham and Sarah, where God came into the camp and talked to Sarah. And that's around the time where he changed their name and all of that. So the cool thing is they didn't know my story with God back from May 15th, 2019. So real quick, I told them, and for any that don't remember, May 15th, 2019, I was here, the girls were all at school, and I was listening to a pastor, and he was praying for breakthrough in areas of a bunch of areas, but specifically finance. And I was just declaring the same verses over my life that I know his heart are, right? That I've been contending for, if that made, for lack of a better word. And as I was saying it, like I heard the Lord, I just realized in that moment his heart that I had thought this was me trying to get his word to come to pass, like believe in enough, all this kind of stuff. And it was like in that moment, I heard God. I heard him say what I said. And I was like, oh my gosh, you said it first. This has always been your word. Oh my gosh. And I was like a crazy woman. I laughed for a solid at least 10, maybe 15 minutes. It felt like an eternity where I'm like aware that I cannot stop laughing, but it was crazy. I was hysterical. And when I was done, I had to tell my friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And I'm talking to God. I'm like, what was that? And he instantly brought me to the story of Abraham and Sarah. And I mean, I know that story. I know that God had spoken to Abraham and told him he'd be like the father of nations. He would bless the whole world, right? Through that, and how they ended up together. Yeah, Sarah ended up giving him her maid Hagar. He had a baby with her because at that point, Abraham was 75. Sarah was, I think, 10 years younger than him. So they waited 10 years, didn't see the promise come to pass. She gave him Hagar. They had Ishmael. 13 years passed. Ishmael's now, 13. Abraham's 86. It's like just going on and on and on. And at that point, God came to them in their tent. In the tent, he talked to Abraham. Sarah's inside the tent. God said, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless Sarah. It's going to come from your own body, which is cool because get this, Ishmael came from his own body. Ishmael was his direct bloodline son. But what did God recognize? He was married to Sarah. They had become one. So unless that baby came from both of them, it was not the baby God had talked about years before. So he blessed them. Well, that's the point where we hear about where Sarah laughed. And every person I've ever heard has said she laughed because she didn't believe him. And I have no doubt she was incredulous. I mean, the Bible talks about that. But what God told me in that moment on May 15th, 2019 was she didn't laugh because she didn't believe me. She laughed because she finally heard me for herself. And he said, Lisa, you're going to have a ministry of laughter where people finally hear me for themselves. And they laugh because, oh my gosh, how much I love them, right? And all this stuff comes flooding in my heart. And I was like, oh my gosh, in the Garden of Eden, when God made man and he said, be fruitful and multiply and inhabit the earth and rule over the birds of the air and the fish of the sea and everything that creeps on the earth, right? Like rule and have dominion. And he told Adam, you can eat from any tree except for that one. Don't eat from that or you'll surely die. Like, don't do that, right? So then the serpent comes in. Who does he talk to? He talks to Eve. Because Eve had a secondhand word. Her word about what you should do came from Adam, as far as what the Bible records. God told Adam, and Adam told Eve. So who does Satan come to? Whoever heard it secondhand. And he says, did God really say? And it was funny because she added more to his word than he said. He said, you can't even touch the tree. God never said that. He said, just don't eat of it, right? It was the same thing here. At 75 years old is when Abraham heard from God that this was what's going to happen. All these years he had told Sarah. Sarah couldn't make it work because she was beyond childbearing age. And finally she's like, I can't even wait anymore. Just go with Hagar. Have this baby. We'll raise him as our own. That must be the way. She's trying to figure this out, right? But at that moment, when Abraham was 99 years old, so she was, 89, I'm imagining? God came and said, it's going to be your wife that has this baby. And she heard him and she laughed because for the first time in her life, she heard the promise her husband had always said firsthand. And what happened? by that time next year, she was holding the miracle child. So I'm telling my girls this last night. Super excited, right? Wake up this morning and I'm thinking about it. And I just had this, we were talking about how God's word, when he speaks it, takes some time to come to pass here, and how God is outside of time. Time is for our benefit. Like if you travel, like I heard this in school.